Ladies and gentlemen, hit subscribe to this channel right now. Happy Mother's Day to you. If you're watching Law.com, Gorsuch and Thomas decry chaos of nationwide injunctions. Politico, the Supreme Court could be poised to hobble the Trump resistance. Democrats cannot legislate. They can't pass any legislation in Congress that would, for example, keep undocumented individuals accused of crimes in the country without deportation. They could simply pass legislation. If that sounds outlandish, that's because the Democratic Party, or the wonderful, morally superior, highly educated, liberal, or progressive value system, oftentimes is very bizarre. If indeed you want to keep undocumented immigrants who potentially committed crimes and you want to prevent them from being deported, pass legislation. Why don't Democrats do that? Because their alleged value system won't hold up on during national presidential campaigns, and they're not going to run on that in 2026 to get the House back. So they rely on nationwide injunctions and media and other advantages that they've had up until recently. Hit subscribe. You'll hear Clarence Thomas in a second. He basically gave President Trump Roberts. The conservatives have given Trump a huge victory. It's upcoming. Check this out. This is Clarence Thomas, Justice Thomas, versus Jack Smith's legal team. This should give you an insight into why Gorsuch and Thomas and even liberal justices dislike nationwide injunctions. Because you have partisan federal judges, even AOC, Ron Wyden. These are top Democrats that wanted to do away with nationwide injunctions. You can't have one out of over 600 federal judges in 90 or so different regions of the country decide that they're going to be the president. Okay, I can't do that. But check this out, ladies and gentlemen. And it's a microcosm, or it's an example of why the Supreme Court doesn't want these nationwide injunctions. Hit subscribe.
Mr. Dreeben, does the president have immunity, or are you saying that there's no immunity, presidential immunity, even for official acts?
Yes, Justice Thomas, but I think that it's important to put in perspective the position that we are offering the court today. The president, as the head of the Article 2 branch, can assert, as applied, Article 2 objections to criminal laws that interfere with an exclusive power possessed by the president or that prevent the president from accomplishing his constitutionally assigned functions. That is the constitutional doctrine that currently governs the separation of powers. What petitioner is asking for is a broad blanket immunity that would protect the president, a former president, from any criminal exposure absent impeachment and conviction, which has never happened in our history.
So the reason I'm giving you the exchange between Justice Thomas and Jack Smith's legal team is that the Supreme Court knows federal judges are partisan, just like the partisan special counsel. That's why the Supreme Court ruled 9-0 unanimous against the Colorado ban. You'll hear that in a second. And the Supreme Court ruled 6-3 that Trump can actually perform a speech without being imprisoned. Democrats said that his speech was a criminal act because he deceives people. If that's the case, you could imprison you could have imprisoned Biden for stating that he would remain in the presidential contest, only 3 weeks later to be usurped by his vice president. But Biden was saying he's not leaving. He promised he would stay. He told a lot of people, I'm staying. Biden told people for 3 weeks straight that he was not leaving the presidential contest. He won his primary. But of course, Democrats they don't even have functioning primaries. So did he lie? Did he deceive? Did he defraud the American public? Did he defraud Democrats? What happened? Did he disenfranchise Democratic voters in those primaries? He won at all 50 states in the Democratic primary. Were those voters disenfranchised? Could you have leveled the same statutes that Jack Smith leveled against Trump for Biden promising he would stay and then lying about it? Okay. He really wanted to stay, but he was forced out. Oh, okay. How do you know if Biden is lying or telling the truth? And then the Democrats said, well, Trump is lying. He knew he lost. The majority of the country doesn't think that mashed potato brains was the most popular candidate of all time. Whether he won or not, of course he won. Biden won. Is he the most popular candidate of all time? Literally the most popular candidate of all time. Okay. Only to be usurped by his vice president less than 4 years later? How does that happen? These are like very rational, reasonable questions to ask. But let's continue. Nationwide injunctions give too much power to federal judges that are partisan. Like, these judges are partisan. That's conservative judges, and they're partisan, and liberal judges, they're partisan. And so partisanship it's fine. That's not the issue here. You're going to have in a democracy or a republic, you're going to have, in this case, two different viewpoints, a more conservative or a more liberal viewpoint. The problem is that the federal judges don't have the right to take on Article 2, Section 1 powers of the commander-in-chief. And the justices know, especially through these exchanges that you're going to hear right now, the discourse, they can see right through partisanship. They can see exactly what was taking place. They knew that Trump being thrown out of the Colorado ballot was purely a Democratic Party attempt to ban a political opponent like the authoritarians and despots they claim not to be. But let's continue.
And we submit that is not necessary in order to assure that the president can perform all of the important tasks that the Constitution reposes in him.
Over in not so distant past, the presidents or certain presidents have engaged in various activity, coups or operations like Operation Mongoose when I was a teenager, and yet there were no prosecutions.
Yes.
Why? If what you're saying is right, it would seem that would have been ripe for criminal prosecution of someone.
So, Justice Thomas, I think this is a central question. The reason why there have not been prior criminal prosecutions is that there were not crimes. And I want to explain why there are layers of safeguards that assure that former presidents.
So Trump's speech was a crime, according to Democrats, and specific, military operations that were questionable or, highly, we won't get into it, but foreign policy decisions that were highly unethical, let's say, that led to a tremendous loss of life, that perhaps broke international norms, treaties, laws. Well, the presidents can apparently do that, but they can't perform a speech that Democrats don't like. And so we see there the unmitigated, absolute, overt hypocrisy. Okay, it was never about the rule of law. That's my point. It's about the Supreme Court does not want to become inundated with endless cases stemming from nationwide injunctions. Check this out right here.
Do you have contemporaneous examples? And by contemporaneous, I mean shortly after the adoption of the 14th Amendment, where the states disqualified national candidates, not its own candidates, but national candidates?
The only example I can think of, Justice Thomas, is the example of Congressman Christie, who was elected in Georgia in, I believe, 1868, and the governor of Georgia refused or declined to certify the results of that election because Mr. Christie was disqualified. But I think it's not surprising that there are few examples because we didn't have ballots in the same way back then. Candidates were either write-in or they were party ballots, so the states didn't run the ballots in the same way, and there wouldn't have been a process for determining before an election whether a candidate was qualified, unlike the processes that we have now that states have created under their Article 1 and Article 2 powers to run elections.
But it would It seemed that particularly after Reconstruction and after the Compromise of 1877 and during the period of Redeemers, that you would have that kind of conflict. There were a plethora of Confederates still around. There were any number of people who would continue to either run for state offices or national offices. So it seemed that would suggest that there would at least be a few examples of national candidates being disqualified, if your reading is correct.
Well, there were certainly national
And of course, the Colorado Supreme Court was overturned unanimously. Even liberal justices sided with the conservatives. Nationwide injunctions stem from partisan judges that want to act like the president, that want to create national policy because Democrats can't pass legislation to uphold their alleged value system. So they rely on nationwide injunctions. That's going to be tossed out. I should have mentioned this in the beginning. The birthright citizenship case, it's the art of the deal. President Trump knows almost certainly the Supreme Court's not going to overturn the precedent on the 14th Amendment, but they will block or prevent the scope or stop these nationwide injunctions, giving Trump a huge victory. And Justice Thomas will be at the forefront. Hit subscribe. Happy Mother's Day. Hit subscribe right now.